The people that are causing the problem are professional agitators. They're insurrectionists. They're bad people. They should be in jail. Thank you.
Protesters in Los Angeles threw eggs and clashed with ICE agents carrying out immigration raids over the weekend. Donald Trump's response? A National Guard deployment. The president signed a memorandum calling 2,000 National Guardsmen into federal service to protect federal employees and facilities. The deployment is controversial, it's being described as unlawful, and it's the first time a president has deployed the National Guard to a state without the governor's consent since LBJ sent troops to protect civil rights demonstrators from segregationists in Alabama in 1965. So what does federal law say about a president's authority to deploy the National Guard? Here are the answers. The presidential memorandum cites Title 10 U.S. Code Section 12406, which allows the commander-in-chief to call the National Guard of any state into federal service whenever there is a rebellion or danger of rebellion against the government. The memorandum states, to the extent that protests or acts of violence directly inhibit the execution of the laws, they constitute a form of rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. California Governor Gavin Newsom called the deployment unlawful and formally asked the Pentagon to rescind the order. Newsom pointed out that the law President Trump cited requires the president to give the orders through the state's governors. But in this case, President Trump gave the orders directly to California's Adjutant General. There are other federal laws governing military deployments. The Posse Comitatus Act prohibits the armed forces from being used to execute laws unless it's expressly authorized by the Constitution or an act of Congress. It was enacted in 1878 to prevent the U.S. Marshals from calling on the Army for assistance with enforcing federal law. It's been updated and reaffirmed as recently as 2021. According to the Brennan Center, a posse comitatus is a group of people who are authorized by a sheriff to suppress lawlessness in a county. The Insurrection Act allows the president to call the National Guard whenever unlawful protests or rebellion against the United States make it impractical to enforce the law through the normal means. If you want to know more, head to our website, san.com, where you can read these laws for yourself and make your own decision.
Our next story is from Saudi Arabia. It was hosting the Hajj, Islam's holiest pilgrimage. It's an annual affair. Nearly 2 million Muslims arrive in Mecca, and this year was no different. The pilgrims came in droves, praying, walking and circling the Kaaba, the holy structure at the center of the Grand Mosque. And watching over them were not just security officials and clerics, but also America's Patriot missile systems. That's right, Saudi Arabia deployed American missile systems to secure the Hajj. Look at these images. They were posted by Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense. They show the Patriot missile system parked right in the middle of the holy city. And it's not just the missiles. There were multiple pictures of helicopters hovering over the city, of soldiers keeping watch, and reports say this is not new. Saudi Arabia has deployed the Patriot missiles to guard the Mecca before. The question is why? What kind of attack did they fear, and from whom? Experts say the roots of this defensive posture run deep. In 2015, Saudi Arabia entered the war in Yemen. They backed the Yemeni government in Sana'a. It was fighting the Houthi rebels. This was in 2015. It's a war that Saudis remain mired in. And the Houthis have not been defeated. If anything, they've been attacking Saudi cities. Over the years, they've fired dozens of ballistic missiles and drones into Saudi Arabia. Most were intercepted, some of them landed, and a few were allegedly aimed towards the Mecca. Reports say in 2016, a missile flew towards the holy city. Saudi Arabia says it was intercepted in the skies, and the Houthis have denied it. Then in 2019, similar reports emerged. They said missiles were intercepted near Jeddah. Saudi Arabia says that the target was Mecca. Again, the Houthis denied it. They said that they never tried to attack the Mecca. But the Saudis apparently did not want to take any more chances. So in 2019, they deployed the Patriot missile system during the Hajj pilgrimage. And in the years since, the security situation in West Asia has only worsened. There's a war raging in Gaza. Israel is bombing the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, rockets are flying in from Yemen. The Houthis have been targeting Israel with missiles and drones. So Riyadh stepped up security arrangements because the Hajj is too big to mess up. And Mecca is not just a holy city. For Muslims, it is the birthplace of Islam. For Saudi Arabia, it is the jewel in the crown, the heart of its legitimacy. This is the pillar on which Saudi Arabia built its moral authority. So any attack on the Mecca, even a possibility, is not just a military threat, it's an existential one for Riyadh, which is why the kingdom turned to American firepower. In fact, Saudi Arabia was the first country in West Asia to purchase the Patriot missile system. It used it to bolster air defenses during the 1991 Gulf War. And since then, the system has been upgraded and redeployed many times. In 2022, the US approved the sale of 300 Patriot missiles to Saudi Arabia. This was part of a $3 billion defense package. The Patriot, as you may know, is a surface-to-air missile defense system. It is designed to detect, track and shoot down enemy missiles mid-air. And that's not all. Saudi Arabia pulled out all the stops during the Hajj. There were tens of thousands of security officers, surveillance drones and emergency response units. Along with these missile defense systems, a lot of other security arrangements were in place. The pilgrims walking through Mecca may or may not have noticed all of this. They came for God, not geopolitics. But the arrangements show that even the holiest of cities are not immune to the dangers of modern warfare. Holy cities too need a shield. And for Saudi Arabia, that shield is made in America.
Hundreds of volunteers left Tunisia on Monday in a land convoy heading towards Gaza, hoping to break Israel's blockade on the territory. The Sumud convoy, which means steadfastness in Arabic, aims to alleviate the suffering of besieged Gaza residents and to show support for the Palestinian cause. Several Tunisian organizations participated in the initiative, including youth groups.
Coming
here is an initiative from the Nabul Club, and our goal is to gather other running clubs that answered the call, such as Star Club and Zara and others. This is a noble initiative to raise youth awareness and to say that we are conscious youth and that we deliver our message in a noble way. And may God help our brothers in Gaza. The convoy left Tunis with doctors, lawyers, activists and journalists aboard. All have in mind the fate of the Madlin boat, which was intercepted by Israel on Monday morning while trying to bring aid to Gaza. This convoy of steadfastness, like that ship, is a message of challenge and will, and this is what the extremist right-wing government of Israel fears. Israel is facing mounting international pressure to let more aid into Gaza. The convoy of steadfastness plans to go through Libya and Egypt to reach the Rafah border crossing, but Egyptian authorities have yet to authorize the group's entry into their territory.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is calling for a massive jump in Europe's defense spending, especially on air and missile defense. In a speech at Chatham House in London, Rutte said NATO needs a 400% increase in air defense capabilities to keep pace with Russia. He warned even if the war in Ukraine ends, the threat from Moscow won't. Rutte says the alliance needs a generational investment in its broader defense readiness posture. Everything from armored vehicles and artillery to cyber and logistics.
The fact is, we need a quantum leap in our collective defense. The fact is, we must have more forces and capabilities to implement our defense plans in full. The fact is, danger will not disappear, even when the war in Ukraine ends.
According to NATO estimates, Russia plans to build 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, and 200 Iskander missiles next year alone. Rutte's push lines up with President Donald Trump's demand that NATO members spend 5% of its GDP on defense. Rutte is pitching a compromise, 3.5% for direct military costs, plus 1.5% for related security upgrades like civil infrastructure and cyber resilience. Right now, just 22 of NATO's 32 member countries meet the older 2% spending target, and none of the countries meet Trump's 5% goal, not even the United States. This funding debate will take stage at NATO summit in The Hague later this month. Meanwhile, many countries are already adjusting their budgets. The UK plans to raise defense spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Germany is going further, 3% by 2027 and 3.5% thereafter. Germany's also reviving its Cold War-era civil defense network. Officials plan to retrofit metro stations, tunnels, and public buildings to create 1 million shelter spaces over the next decade. The total cost of that project will be around $45 billion, maybe more. And it's probably why Rutte is pitching a compromise, which would include some infrastructure projects in defense spending. Clearly, the urgency is growing. European officials say Russia could rearm within 4 years. As Rutte put it, hope is not a strategy. NATO, he said, must become stronger, faster, and more prepared for whatever comes next.